I'm here with Jan Frederick Poleszynski, the creator of Healy's Deep Cycle. We're going to be talking about the purpose behind the cycle and how you can best integrate it into your lives. So Jan, can we begin with something about you? How did you get into natural medicine and in particular frequencies?
Yeah, well, I've always been interested in how things are connected since I was a young boy. So I asked myself the big questions. Where are we coming from? Why are we here? What is the universe? What is the body? Where are we going? And a lot of these questions I never had an answer to at school or from my parents or anybody, because I learned quite early that there is a lot of levels of existence that is not well described within regular physics and medical science. This resulted in a lifelong search. And in my mid-40s, I kind of discovered the basis for physical life. So I understood from the science we do have, keep in mind there's most things we don't know in the universe. But the science we do have tell us that 95 to 97% of the universe, we don't really know what it is. We have theories, dark matter, dark energy, the field, whatever, and we understand 3 or 4%, and this 3 or 4% is what we call energy. And electromagnetic energy is a good description of our physical body. So everything going on in the body and anything you see around you, even this image right now, is electromagnetic waves. There are waves like waves in water, and waves differ in speed, and if they are quicker, we say they have a higher hertz, higher vibration per second. So anything you know around you, any physical material from atoms to electrons to cells, bones, body, planets, light, electric light, everything is electromagnetic radiation. So your body is an electric system, and it radiates frequencies on multiple levels. And this discovery was for me very important because now at least I know something which we do have theories for, which we can use and we can measure. So for example, we can measure the pH of the body. That's, by the way, potential hydrogen. And then we actually measure the electric potential of the liquids in the body. And we can measure a lot of different things in the body. For example, electrocardiogram, which is the electric signal from the heart. And we can measure the ECG, the electric signal from the brain. We can measure electric signal from a lot of parts of the body and cells. So when you understand the electrics of the body, you have a much greater chance to support the body and the life function, you being here now. And even all your emotions, they're not out there. It's not something outside of anything. You radiate it because of the electromagnetic waves from your body, but your emotions are stored in your body in different systems. So this is relevant for using of the deep cycles because, for example, anxiety, fear, stress, sexual abuse, or any sexual issues, they're all stored in the kidney system. And when I say the kidney system, it's from the adrenals, kidneys, bladder, urinary tract, sexual organs, male and women. We have a male have the prostate, of course, and testicles. Women have the ovaries. And in this system, these electric patterns, like you could compare them to sort of a drawing or a scar, they are stored. So if you have a trauma, when you can release this memory in the body, in the organ systems, you release the problem. So that's why working with the electromagnetic waves in different modalities can be very effective. I think that's
yeah, no, that's really interesting. So it was a discovery that you made late in life, or relatively late in life,
yes,
as part of almost a spiritual search for the deeper questions.
absolutely.
What did you do with that then? Did you start working on patients with it?
Then I started to learn about it, how to use it, and look around for apparatus. I got into a lot of quantum medical devices, so-called, which I found that the theories behind the construction of the devices were not integrated by any quantum physicist or any professionals. So there was a lot of, let's say, more or less professional devices out there. Um, and After a while, I found a system called the core energetics. I tested a lot of different devices from, a lot of this different quantum medical devices and frequency generators and so forth. And I discovered this core system, which was a partly informational medicine system and a partly frequency system. So you can, and a little bit similar to timer med and timer frequency, as we do, some people know now. And we started working with it, and I met. I was at some conference in Netherlands. I met Nuno there. He was also working with this frequency systems, and we started the sharing experience. And from that day, I started to treat some people at home. Started a private company, and I had a lot of interesting results. I remember very well that I had this guy, and obviously this is something we're not supposed to talk about, but it's the history about the past, and it's about the different apparatus, and we don't claim anything. But this guy came by and the ring on my door, and said he asked me to buy some liposome vitamin C, because I started informing people about the benefits of using vitamin C and liposomes for better absorption. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't have anything because I'm sold out, because I had a little garage sales at that point. But I said, if you want to do something fun, you can try a treatment with the electromedical device I have, and it can be give you quite good effects on how you feel. And I said, well, yeah, I can do that. And he told me, well, I have some issues. I have some rashes, I have some skin problems, and I have some pains, and so on. And during the conversation, during the treatment, he told me, and by the way, I have leukemia, I have cancer in the blood. And I said, okay, well, we did some treatments, and I was actually, at that time, we were discussing all frequencies back and forth with me and Nuno in Portugal, because we were, looking into how to do it. And at some point he said, oh, I can feel something in my liver. It's like a small itching. And after the treatment, he said, well, I don't know what it is, but something happened. I said, well, that's fine. He felt good, so it was good. And I didn't hear anything from him for some time. And maybe a week later, he was again at my door with no appointment. And he told me, I got to tell you this. I've been to the hospital, and because the hospital had made a mix-up of blood tests, so they had to retest everybody. And they retested me, and they called me the next day and said, sorry, we probably did a mistake again, because we didn't find any cancer. So he did the next treatment, the next test, and they still didn't find any cancer traits. Mm-hmm. They said, what are you working with? What is this technology? And he was a German engineer, so he wanted to know everything. So that gave a quite interesting, let's say, start, the first experiences with this. And so later on, we were looking for a more, let's say, professionalized system, and we came across the timer medical device, which didn't have frequency, the energy. It had the informational resonance, like homeopathy, if you like. I remember I said to Marcus, and I talked to Nuno, and I said, well, it's all good, but we'd like to have the frequencies. And he said, we need you to integrate the frequency generator and so forth. And this was interesting for all parties. And short story long, it happened that then suddenly Marcus was traveling and meeting Nuno, so we could see what kind of frequencies we're using, and started building the timer frequency device. And I was obviously involved from the start, and doing, I remember I had in a couple of years, I had a couple of 100 hours of beta testing on the device. And we started using it in the clinic. We had a lot of interesting results on different issues, different things. Generally, everybody gets a better balance in the body. People feel more calm, relaxed. This is a normal reaction. So it's not a double randomized blind study on this, but it works holistically. There's no doubt about it. And then after a while, I found out that this experience we gained from this last 7 years was hard for the new therapists buying time and frequency. So I thought, okay, I'm going to make the deep cycle. So to help them, so they have a program from 90% of all clients, which they just can run, because it's hard for them to learn all the small details about how to put together a good protocol. And that takes experience. So I made Deep Cycle for this reason, to help them out and help the clients. And then obviously it was introduced, I think in 2015, the first Deep Cycle. Now you have the Deep Cycle 2 or Deep Cycle Harmonics, as you might know. And not so many years later, they came up with a home device, which was Timer Home, a small handheld device that doesn't require mobile anything. And eventually then the Healy, that was very small, portable. You can use it from your mobile and so forth. And then the programs were ported to Healy, and this of course made a lot of people aware of the programs and technology. So that's kind of the background.
That's really interesting. It's a story we don't normally hear, so it's good to know how these things came about. I want to think a little bit about the name, the Deep Cycle. 3 words. I want to ask you about 2 of them. We'll leave it's not so important. So a lot of the other program groups, they've got names like fitness or mental balance or meridian. So it's really obvious what they're about. Deep Cycle suggests something quite profound, but it's a bit broader as well. Can you let us know what the deep refers to and what the purpose of the group is?
Yeah, well, first of all, the deep refers to a couple of things. It refers to that the deep cycle touches the emotional levels, the physical levels, the electric level, the biochemical level. We're supposed to say that's only working with electric level, so we can keep it to that. But the electric level influences many things. So in that respect, it goes deep because it's not just some sort of a stimulation for the electric body, because your emotional balance and everything is stored in your body. So when you create a balance on a deeper level, you also create a kind of balance for all levels of yourself. And it goes pretty deep. Many people have experienced a lot of profound reactions and deep experiences when for example, you can get through, let's say, a little bit more the physical level. You optimize the electric system of, let's say, the kidneys again, and this suddenly results in emotional things coming up, old things coming up, and people are telling me, I just started telling my husband about this. I didn't talk about it. I didn't give them any psychotherapy or anything. I just give them the treatments with the frequency. And so this we have seen many times. So the thing is that the gold cycle is from Nuno. It's we're working on very similar principles because of the shared and same experience with using the timer frequency devices in the practice. But his program is more, let's say, if it's doing the kidneys, it's doing the kidneys and not much others. I do in these programs, which goes a bit deeper. It takes the relationships of the kidneys to different emotional levels and electrolytes and the balance of electrolytes and so forth. So it's more comprehensive in a way.
So the individual programs are more integrative, each one individually?
Yeah, they're more comprehensive compared to the gold cycles, even if they have the kind of same foundation and thinking, and they go quite deep into the matter. So, for example, the kidney of male it has, we use the frequency databases to search for anything related to the kidneys, of course, but also the prostate. So if you have a prostate problem, it's very good. If you have a urinary tract infection or, well, any issues, electric issues with the urinary pathways, you would, for the female, you would use the kidney female. So these things are added. So it's not just a base function, but the base function with relevant structures or emotional issues.
Mm. And is there a significance in the word cycle? Because most of the other program groups are just known as program group, but the Deep Cycle, which you created, and the Gold Cycle, which Noon and Nina created, they're specifically called cycles. Is there a significance to that?
Yes, it's a lot of significance to that, and I think, I mean, it can be that the programs work like this. The other programs, as I mentioned for you before this interview, that I'm not aware exactly how the different programs are made, because I don't know the people. I don't know what is their method or their clinical practice experience. But in nature, everything goes in cycles. You have your 24-hour cycle. Your hormone production is completely different in the morning from the evening. Your blood pressure is different. Your digestive system is different. The detoxification system is different. So that there is cycles during the day. You obviously have the circadian cycle, which is regulated by the light. And you have the cycles of Earth going around the sun. You have the rotation of Earth as a cycle. You have the moon going up and down, which is influencing Earth quite a lot. You can see it on the tide, the water coming in and out. So you can imagine that 95% of all the molecules in your body are water. So it influences us quite strongly. And you have the cycles of the weather, and you have cycles of solar storms and solar emissions. So there's a lot of cycles in nature, and anything grows in cycle, and at some point it will regenerate and recycle. So so it makes sense to run frequencies and programs in cycle. So for example, there is in 9 out of 10 deep cycle programs, we have this 3 times 3 minute introduction, preparing let's say the more physical aspects of the body that goes in cycle. So some people would just do, okay, I want to do 10 minutes with low frequencies for, let's say, body frequencies. But it would be much more natural for the body to do a couple minutes, then stop, a couple minutes, then stop, because this mimics the cycles of the body. So if you send one specific frequency, you maybe activate some reaction in the body, and this takes a little while before the reaction comes, and then you want to do the next. So this way we use the quantum generator, or random event generator, which it is, to choose to look at the frequency with a new eye very often. So this is also, and at the end, I also normally use some cycles of high frequencies, which are more balancing. So the very high frequencies will go around the body, balance the biofield, if you like, and this is kind of a closure, a balancing thing. So even inside the programs, there are specific cycles of what we do. So yeah.
So it sounds like a very holistic approach that ties in not only with the cycles of the body, but tries to tune those with the cycles of nature as well. So quite a profound approach. What effect does that have on, or what implications does that have for people who've bought the Healy, who've subscribed to the Deep Cycle, or who have it with their Healy, and you want to know how to use it? How can they use the various programs in synergy to make the best use of this natural approach, of this holistic approach?
Yeah, well, it's there is a lot of options there, because we are all different. We have the same, let's say, a lot of equal properties, but we react very differently to whether to to the cycles of nature also. So making a very generalized rule, it doesn't match with our integrated medical thinking. We are more into integrated medicine.
Yes.
It's not so far from holistic, but it's more precise what we're doing, integrating multiple methods to get synergy. So supplement water, supplements, correct food, exercise, combined with electromagnetic treatments such as frequency microcurrents. What was your question again?
It was, what guidance could you give to people who have
Yeah,
bought the Healy, they've got the Deep Cycle, and they want to know how they, without necessarily being experts or very knowledgeable about the natural medical field, how
yeah,
would they make the best choices as to what programs to use, how to use them all synergistically?
yeah. But since we are so different, and since there is so multiple experiences we have, and in different times, as I said, it's a little bit. I don't like to make fixed rules, so don't take this as fixed rules.
Sure.
Take this as let's say possible ways of using it. For example, it's one thing you can be aware of, that if you are extremely fatigued uh, at some point in your cycle, running the pure energy, it will work very fine. And for people with chronic fatigue, or ME as we call it here, I experienced that after an introduction period, using the frequencies, preparing with water and supplements, preparing the body on all levels, both with the frequencies and lifestyle, they benefit from using the pure energy or the energy work, the long program, and can do it quite often. And they don't have any negative effect, only positive. They just wake up next morning, they feel more energized, they have it better. They even sleep with it. Some people, if they're very fatigued and tired and have a lot of toxins in the body, if they run a lot of progress in one day, wake up next morning and don't feel well. And the same thing can happen if it's when the moon is rising. You are typically more energetic, more thinking is going on. You sleep a little bit less. You feel different. So this is the time to kind of support this energy development. But let's say in a period where there is nature tells you, okay, we need to relax, we now take care. This is a good period to use the pure calm, these kind of programs. So let's say you don't want to, if the body really needs to rest and is really tired, you don't want to force it to try to be very energetic.
Yeah.
This is we have to accept that our life is not a straight line. It goes up and down in cycles, following our own cycles around us, cycle in nature, the weather, and so forth. So this is one thing to consider. Another thing to consider is that nothing works before the bioelectric level is in balance, and before you can handle oxidation and reduction. So this sounds very complicated to some, but oxidation is kind of, let's say, molecules who want to have an electron, who want to have a negative charge, to take a negative charge. And reduction is molecules that can supply electrons, like hydrogen, molecular hydrogen water, or inhalation, or vitamin C, or any antioxidant can be a donor. So this balance of the plus and minus of the electrons and oxidants in the body will determine the cell membrane potential. So let's say the charge of the batteries of the cells. And if this balance is not in place, and you don't drink enough pure water, which is critical, and you should have contact, you should have sunlight in your face and eyes every day, not too much blue light. That's why I use this. And you should be in contact with Earth, because they are charging you and synchronizing you with nature. So this is, and we mimic this in the program, specifically in the Deep Cycle Harmonics. There is a separate new list called Universal Frequency List, and which I made, which is outside of the Healy and Tyro frequency. It doesn't exist. So I upload a special frequency list that runs with the programs. And these frequencies are frequencies, natural frequencies from Earth and nature, which you can synchronize to. But anyway, back to the point. The point is that you have to have a balance in the pH and the redox, the electric balance. All of this is the same with different names. So we have many different names for the same thing. And this balance is mainly governed by the kidneys and lungs. So that's why we're always talking about the kidneys and lungs. Because if your kidneys and lungs don't work properly, they don't do the pH. They are the foundation of the pH buffer system. So if you look up on Google what is the body's pH buffer system, you will see it's the system regulating the pH and the acids, the strong and the weak acids going out from the kidneys and the lungs. So they need to cooperate and be in balance and be working. So if you have a fatigued, worn out kidney, and let's say the kidney energies are low, you will have to do the kidneys until it works properly, because no other program is really going to work very well before you fix this. So this is the kind of primary rule of thumb, is to run the kidneys and the lungs. I do, however, also suggest that in the new Deep Cycle Harmonics, there's a program called Sensitive. This program can be useful to you if you are a first timer, haven't tried a Healy, run the Sensitive sometimes. See how you feel next day, run the Sensitive in a few days again. And if you're just feeling fine with it, okay, go for the kidneys or the lungs, depending on your intuition or your guidance from a therapist. If you have a detox reaction or some reaction you don't expect or like, give it a day or two, clean out, hydrate well, run the Sensitive. If you're allergic, if you're electrosensitive, chemically sensitive, run the Sensitive once in a while. It will help you to tolerate changes. Yeah.
So if I understand you right, then, from the point of view of somebody who's just bought the Deep Cycle, or just subscribed to it, or who has it with their Healy, if they got the earlier versions of the Healy, to make a program for themselves, partly it's common sense, partly it's, you don't jump in with a program that's going against the natural rhythms of your body, like you said, forcing yourself to be energetic when you're tired. Partly it's trial and error as well, because you don't necessarily know what the underlying causes are. So you try a program and you see how you feel, you see how it makes you feel. There's also this focus that we can put in the first instance on the kidneys and the lungs. Is that pretty much right? Is there anything else that you would say to
Yeah, well, I would kind of, let's say, correct a little bit, because the trial and error thing, you have to get the kidneys and lungs to work to build up the battery power of your cells. Yeah. Before you have power in your mobile phone, you can't call anybody. So quite simply, you have to fix this function. So that's not the trial and error thing. You have to fix this function. And if you're going for very deep programs, for example, we have the healing of causes. It's been called Back to the Roots in the former version. Now it's Back to Healing of Causes, because that's my original name. I like it better. It's very hard to balance the emotional level if you are biochemically or electrically out of balance. So I think it's just important to understand that if you have a health problem, you have low voltage or low charge of all cells in your body or special areas. So, for example, if you have a pain in the area, this is due, can be due to different things, of course, if you had an accident or something, but if you just have some pain coming up, that's a signal of low voltage. If a low voltage is low circulation, it means low oxygenation. If low oxygenation and circulation, it means low repair function. And what you have to do, you can run the free flow, which is a good circulation program and pain program. However, if your body is acidic or has low voltage, acidic means low voltage, it's the same thing. You will need to do the kidney and lungs to get this up and running. So this will be the main thing.
Okay, that's really good. That's really helpful. And for somebody who, again, I'm always thinking of the people who don't have the medical, the anatomy or the natural medicine background. How would they then gauge? So they have a sense that they've got something wrong. They know that it makes sense to treat the kidneys and lungs before moving on to the deeper programs. How would they then gauge when they've done it? Would they do it once a day? And if so, how would they gauge when it's time to move on?
First of all, one thing to mention, which is more reliable than any quantum process, and the quantum process is influenced by your consciousness and your intentions. So if you're looking at the timer and doing a resonance, and you let's say you imprint, let's say that you imprint the process or influence the process to tell you what you're feeling. So you can keep that in mind. People run it and they think, oh, now I'm getting a guidance from the universe telling me to do this and this and this program. But you're primarily getting a guidance from yourself. Even in my how do you say, even better way to do it is that you ask yourself, what do I need?
Yeah.
Because your intuition, when you learn to connect with your intuition, you just trust the answers. You ask yourself a question and then there comes up an answer. Everybody normally will have some answer, but then many people start to use the intellectual brain and say, oh, it cannot be, or maybe not, or blah, 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 have a long intellectual process. That's a completely waste of time because your first intuition is always correct. So if your intuition tells you to do something, you follow your intuition. And that's also with the cycles. So that's a good, once you get past the balancing of the pH and getting your voltage up, regulating the toxins, you can start using your intuition. What's good for me right now? You ask yourself and look at the programs, look at the names, and you will see from a program it pops up and you say, oh, it can't be possible, but it is possible. That's a good program for you. So that's a tip. What was your other question?
Well, we'll come back. I think that's really interesting though, because I've not heard the resonance spoken about in that way before. That it taps into your intent. So it's not tapping into the universe to give you an objective answer that's based on your physiology. It's tapping into you and your consciousness, and that can be directed by the power of intention to give you something that will address a specific issue or problem. But as you say, it's a tool to access your intuition, whereas it's also possible to access your intuition without that tool. Am I right in understanding you?
Yes, and just to understand that anything in the universe we know about, it's small rotating energy charges from the smallest atom to the smallest quantum particle to the biggest solar systems and the galaxies and the universe. So everything is interconnected. So it's not something that you cannot say that it's not coming from the universe. So it's only coming from you because you are the universe.
Yes.
So that's all connected. It's all one. But we run around as let's consider we have a big consciousness, we could call it a big animal, and with a lot of heads. And then when you and I look at each other, two heads from the same animal are looking at each other, and we think we are not the same. This is something to keep in mind. So we have an individual experience in this body, but we are physically, electromagnetically, and all other ways connected to everything around us. So that's it. And another thing is that if you are very afraid of cancer, or very afraid of some disease, or you have some ideas that you have some disease because of this, and then you do the resonance in this emotional mode, it might well be that the resonance is going to give you an indication of your fears.
Sure.
That doesn't mean necessarily it's the best program, because that's not how you choose. You need to try to neutralize yourself, and you just ask your intuition, give me a lot of, should I have, what program do I need, this or this? And you get this answer. let's say, without the intellectual process, because the intellectual process will just mess it up.
Yes.
And when the first coin that flips, you said, "Oh, okay, I'll do it," and you will experience that it's good for you. That's a little bit elaborating more on that.
This, you know, what I'm about to ask is totally outside the scope of this, the remit of this interview. So we'll probably leave it for now. But it would be really interesting to talk at some point about how we optimize our consciousness and our use of consciousness, so that we tune into our intuition rather than tuning into the underlying fears and baggage that we're carrying. But that's probably another story for another day, unless you have a quick answer.
Sure, but there is some quick tips, and if you can take it in, you take it in. If not, we can explain it better another time. And that is the thing is that intuition is when there is no intellectual or emotional process. Because if there is no emotional process or intellectual process, you know, you're not getting neutral information. You can start doing it by looking at essential oils or whatever, and just looking at it, and you just say to yourself, what's good for me? And the first thing that just pops up, try it, because don't process it afterwards, because the processing afterwards is just making you insecure, or maybe I didn't have it, or I don't trust my intuition, and all these things. Just look at the thing neutrally. You look around the room. You look at the color. Oh, when I look at the pens over there, I see green. So I just saw green, and I know this because I'm used to using my intuition. But green is a good thing for me today, of some reason. So it's just when you can recognize intuition when you don't have an intellectual process or an emotional experience. It's just something that pops up, you know, pops up like this, boop, out of nowhere. That's intuition.
And I guess it's a question of training it, because nobody, you know, if people aren't used to using it, they're not going to just pick it up and feel very comfortable with it straight away. It's a matter of easing yourself in.
I agree, but the training's more about recognizing it than to do it, because you do it all the time, but you don't recognize it. And you do it, and you have some sort of it pops up something, and then you start processing it, and then it's becoming an intellectual process, and you forget where it came from. So the only thing you have to do is kind of ask yourself the question, ask you, because you know everything about you and what's good for you, and whatever pops up without all the process, you try it, you trust. And this is also in the daily life. You look around yourself, you come in the room, you have this sort of a feeling that there is something not right. You don't have to spend the energy, because if you feel that something is not right, something is not right.
Yeah.
There is a person out of balance there. There's some emotional thing going to meet you. So then you can rather spend energies on seeing how you can balance it out, instead of asking yourself, is my emotions, my intuition just popping up and not correct? Because so the training is just kind of trusting it, because everybody has it.
Brilliant. Let's come back to the body, to the deep cycle.
Yep.
And I know you've talked in the past about people being either a lung person or a kidney person. Can you say a little bit more about that and how you might know?
How you know? Yeah, well, I know from basically looking at people, and I do the measurements and so forth, and of course I combine it with intuition. So I just ask myself, you know, how's this person doing, and then I get the first impressions, and actually I know most already, and then I do spend a couple of hours in doing functional testing and so forth, and then it confirms it and fills it out and makes the bigger picture. But let's say a little bit, yeah, some indications. If you have an issue in the lower parts, it's a good idea to treat the kidneys.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you have pain, of course, in the kidneys, it's a good idea to treat the kidneys. If you experience some sexual trauma, sexual thing, it's the kidneys. If you experience a lot of stress, you need to support the kidneys.
And that's
if you
because
have
the
a
organs you've mentioned are connected to the kidneys. The kidneys like the mother organ for
yeah,
those
yeah,
systems.
yes, that's correct. So this is it. And emotional, such as anxiety, stress, insecurity, and these things are very often connected to the kidney system and stored in the electric connection pathways of the kidneys. So this is the kidneys, and sometimes if you have so if this is kind of something you experience often, some people have it. My body is very sensitive for things, so if I digest or eat or drink something that my body doesn't like, it says, okay, fine, I don't like it, I just want to flush it out, and I have to go to the toilet every 10 minutes. So I'm a kidney person. So my kidneys react very strongly to anything. That means it's a good idea for me to support my kidneys because my body uses the kidneys very actively. If you have any, obviously, if you have any, if you feel kind of stabbed in the back, you feel grief, lack of joy, you don't feel really stressed, you kind of feeling a little bit down, and this is often indications of emotions stored in the lung system. So then it's maybe more important with the lungs. And of course, again, if you have typical issues in the lungs, which indicates that the voltage of the lung system is low, the energy charge of the lung system is low, the batteries cells of the lungs are low, which you need to treat the lungs. But of course, this is guidelines. But again, let's say you have a tendency of asthma or bronchitis. Of course, it's in the lungs, but it can be that the kidneys are not working well, so the lungs are overloaded. So let's say in some part of the process, if you know you have emotions, feelings, pain, issues in the kidneys and connected systems, it makes sense to treat it, and likewise with the lungs. But after some time, you want to do the kidneys and the lungs, maybe each other time, or if you're more important for you with the kidneys, you do 2 times kidneys and 1 times lung in a cycle,
Yes.
deep
Okay.
cycle, you know, with some days between, and do it like this until this issue is fixed. So a little bit palish, kind of lacking joy, feeling. Yeah, this is more a type of lung person. The kidney person is more type of easily stressed, easily getting some anxieties. This is some ways you can.
That's really interesting. And can we read anything into the reactions that we have? Maybe so. For example, the first time I ran the Breath of Life program, it's actually the strongest reaction I've ever had to any program. I had so much energy, and I'm going to be 50 next year. I was running around the park like a 19-year-old, really sprinting. I didn't think I could do that anymore. Does that tell me anything about me? Can I use that information in any way?
Yeah, I would make it very simple. Treating the lungs is good for you, and it hits at least at this period until um, maybe again you get into a different cycle where there can be beneficial to do the other programs. It's obviously is spot on. It's this is just that's a simple answer.
Okay.
And
Okay.
in some time, if you don't feel that this is gaining effect, that's possibly that it's time to move on to a different cycle.
That it's
And
done its work.
I often tendency to think that when everything is in good balance, uh, it's a good time to run healing of causes, because
Yes.
then you can start working on the deeper levels, which is very often influencing your situation. So the emotional patterns of the general balance of your system, these things are good to work with, and mental balance, emotional balance. depression, anxieties, tendencies, these things, because yeah, depression is again a little bit connected to the lungs. That's a good idea to treat that once you kind of gain your balance, and maybe you've been going through most of the cycles, having a period with lungs, kidneys, detoxification. Maybe there's some stomach issue, but the stomach system, which is very much connected. So if you have, for example, you have problems with the mucous membranes or the membranes of the stomach, you easily have problems with the membranes of the lungs because they're very similar structures. Well, then you might need to treat the stomach. But treating the stomach without changing your diet is not necessarily going to give you a long-lasting result.
Yeah.
So once you kind of been through the cycles and trying them out, because there is no harm trying them out. Once you are in balance, you're well prepared, you have your drink been hydrating for some time, you're taking some good absorption minerals. I prefer the pico minerals, by the way, and then it's no harm to try the programs. And if you feel, okay, this is really good for me, you run it until you feel it's not really doing anything more for me.
Yes.
And if you are kind of having the neutral reaction to most of the programs, that means that you are in a balance, and it's a good idea to work on the root causes.
That's really interesting. So that program that used to be called Go to the Roots, sorry, I can't remember the new name for it.
No, the old original was Healing All Causes, and at some point time we were just changed it to Back to the Roots.
Okay.
So I think it's in the Deep Cycle 1, it's still called in most languages Back to the Roots.
Yes, yeah.
And in the new, I haven't uploaded it to my Healy because I don't need to. I can just install it. It's called Healing All Causes.
But that it's interesting that that's the one to use, because people often think, oh, go to the roots. It's gonna take me to the root of the problem and as a starting point. But that's not the case, is it? We use that at the end when we're already imbalanced to almost to consolidate those roots.
Yes, I would say so, and to help you deal with the deeper patterns which often reoccur in cycles. So let's say I'm one of those guys who react to a lot of things, and every January, February, I live in the north in Norway. It's dark and cold, and we had a cold and dark for quite some time. And my body just don't enjoy this period. You know, so there comes my cycle, and I'll just start to wait for spring, you know, have some more sunlight, have some more heat, get outside again. And my body really don't like it. So at that point, it's a good idea for me to try to support my deep basic energy, and maybe not so much the emotional levels, because my body is starting to get out of balance. But of course, if these cycles we talk about, these cycles can be shorter, so it can be in a day. I don't know if you experienced it, that in the same day you can feel out of balance, and you feel very harmonic and happy.
Very much, yes.
Have you?
Oh, all the time, yeah. All the other way around sometimes.
Yeah, and this can be during a week or whatever. And let's say you are all happy with everything. You feel happy. It's all balanced, and you feel good. I can promise you that your body is also in a good state right now, because this is connected. It's not. You cannot say, "Oh, the body is bad, but I'm good." You know, that's, excuse me the expression, that's bullshit, because if you're really good, your body is also in pretty good balance at that point. Doesn't mean that there is no challenges or no nothing, but it means that it's quite a good balance.
And you're
And that
strong enough to
could be
cope
the
with it.
time that you can run the healing of causes again, even if you haven't done a lot of preparation, because you're having this window of harmony, and you want to, let's say, enforce it and establish it. So that's why all these rules are just kind of hints.
Yes.
Because the individual cycles are different, yeah. and at different points. But
inspiration rather than solid rules.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the only solid rule is that you need to get rid of toxins, get rid of acids, having the detoxification system working properly,
Yeah.
so it builds up the physical energy of the cells. Because if you don't have physical energy and the toxins are in there, you're never going to feel good.
Yeah.
And I mean, emotionally and energetically and in all ways.
So finally, Jan,
Yeah.
that sort of brings us to the final point I want to talk about, which is lifestyle. You've talked a lot about water. You've talked in this conversation about hydration and having pure water. Let's take it as a given that water is important because it you know it's the food of the cells, it's the food of the body. But how would you know whether a source of water is pure or not? I mean, clearly tap water's not doesn't count as pure water, but what does?
Well, I mean, unless it's measured, you don't know. But of course, there are some spring waters, you know, in the mountain sides, and there has been a spring there with water coming from inside, deep inside the mountain for the last a couple of hundred years. It's always been good. It's probably always going to be good
Yeah,
because it's hard to pollute this way.
yeah,
But all other water, you either have to have a measurement or you need to purify it, and purification process is there are different apparatus. I could advise it. We do have it on in our store. Things that we have tested and we know, but general advice is that we want to have a filter that filters down to zero point 0.1 micron or less. This means that you will reduce the dissolved solids or any material in it, and it's smaller than any bacteria, fungus, virus, whatever. So this is kind of a first step, and next step is to, or depending on kind of investments and if it's for the whole house or for just the drinking water and so forth, you would like to induce some sort of a structure, improved structure of the water. But you can use some sort of a supplement which will help structure the water. And then you want to produce water with high hydrogen content, because hydrogen is, you know, 100 times the capacity of releasing electrons compared to vitamin C or so. And so hydrogen is the new medicine. So inhalation of hydrogen and drinking water with molecular hydrogen, pure water, it's very beneficial, and it helps your digestive system. It neutralizes, you know, the moment you have a good saturation of hydrogen gas in the body, immediately starts stopping oxidative process, oxidation. So oxidation is what ruins your cell membranes, and this is the inflammation, infections, anything. So it's a very effective thing. It also helps regulate the digestive system, and it helps hydrating better because the molecules are smaller, the clusters are chopped up, and also it has profound effect on DNA. It can donate donors to the energy conversion process called ATP cycle in the cells, in the mitochondria. So that's recommended. So, you know, let's say pure water. Structure is a bigger theme, but you can do it simple way, or you can do it more professionally and for the whole house or whatever with devices. Hydrogen, and drinking enough of it. This is, let's say, the basis. Um, so we have also started to introduce water with, this is a little bit outside of it, but special water with low, because the hydrogen in water exists in different type of isotopes. So you have so-called deuterium, which is a heavy hydrogen, we call it, heavy hydrogen. And in old days, during the Second World War, Norway produced heavy water, and the Germans want to steal it to make an atomic bomb. And so this was one of the big hero stories of the Norwegian army, where they just got into the factory and blew it all up, so the Germans couldn't make the bomb. But anyway, the heavy hydrogen is like 150 parts per million in regular drinking water. And every time you get this heavy hydrogen into the cell, into the ATP cycle, it's kind of stops a little bit. So it turned out that in a lot of serious diseases, the level of deuterium is high. So that's another kind of advancement, is to use water which is specially prepared, ultra clear, ultra clean, with the very low deuterium content, combined with the low carb type of diet to lower the deuterium level, which is next level. So I've been reading and studying about water for many years now, and I know nothing about it because it's still, you know, it's an enormous field. But there's something we know for sure, and the basic: get it clean, get a proper hydrogen generator. That's A and B at least.
Okay. Well, I don't think there's anybody watching this who would know more about water than you do, but that's the ideal. In the absence of that, or if somebody's not ready or not able to make the investment in that sort of thing, how much worse would it be, or would it still be a valuable thing to use filtered water, something like a normal Berkey filter that people have in their kitchens, to get?
Yeah, of course.
And you can also get these little personal harmonizers with imploded water that are supposed to structure the water as well. This is a sort of cheap and easy solution for people. Is that valuable as well? I mean, obviously not as good as the top level option.
Well, it's not always about the top level, well, generally a certified documented filter, it should tell you what it's filtering away, and also tell you what size in micron it removes. Because obviously if it's a filter with a 0.1 micron or less, and it's certified filter, you can rely that it's probably doing it. A generally Berkeley filter is, I think, a normal good filter, but I don't think it filters a very small particles, but obviously it will probably remove 50, 60, 70 type of chemicals and heavy metals, and that's a good start. When it comes to this harmonizing and structuring devices, there are a lot of fakes on the market, so that's not, I can't give a general answer. There are also a lot of good products on the market. So well, some of it is not worth investing in at all. Some are. And then maybe it's even easier to use the liquid I mentioned. It's called BioBite H3O2. You can find it on my site also, which is helping to generate structures in water and increasing absorption and chopping up toxins. So it's removing toxins. For a filter, we do sell a filter from Aquaphor, two different types of filters, which are low cost. I think it's about something like €130 for the mug, and the mug has an electric pump with a battery, and it has a 5-stage filter, and it actually filters down to 0.1 micron, so it makes a lot of clean water. So that's not very expensive, but of course the disadvantage is that you have to charge it, and you produce 1.5 liters or what it is each time. But we moved into this house, and we haven't had time to install a fixed filter under the sink, as we prefer. So we're actually using this filter all the time, and but we have to change the small filter then quite often because it goes a lot of water through.
So we'll put a link to that.
The water, 100 times more better than the regular tap water.
We'll put a link to that in the YouTube description of the video as well.
Yeah, I can share some links with you.
Yeah, great.
Later.
So Jan, it's been extremely interesting. I've appreciated this conversation very much. Thank you very much for joining me.
You're welcome. Okay, well, have a nice day. Take care.